Welcome back to the Pint-Sized Biker. Today I'm going to talk about the things to think about when riding a bike and some tips for those that are a bit shorter, things to look out for, tips and tricks and things you can do to make life a little bit easier yourself, to make yourself less anxious and generally enjoy the ride more. The first thing to think about is the most expensive thing, the bike. This bike's got 31-inch seat height and I'm 28-inch leg, so obviously instantly you think to yourself, well, you know, you're going to be on either tippy toes or going to have to lean to one side just to make life a little bit easier for yourself. Otherwise, you'll be constantly on your toes. Little tips and tricks that I've got over the years are to always think about what foot you're going to put down first and bits like that. The first thing to do is to sit on the bike, especially if you're going to go look at a brand new bike. You want to know how it feels. So if I get on my bike, you can see instantly I'm on my toes on this side. I'm also holding the bike with the front brake. You can hold it with the rear brake, so you can release your hands. But as you're just standing upright like that, you can see that you're on tippy toes. If you lean it to one side, take the side stand off for true life. Lean it to one side, foot on rear brake, this foot down on the ground. I'm flat-footed, so therefore I'm taking all the weight on one side. And you can also do it the other side if you want it to be changing gear. So when you're like that, you can get a feel of all the levers, look in the mirrors, you can feel what it's like when you're potentially at a junction. And I'll show an example of a junction a little bit later on. So do that and see if you're comfortable. If the seat height is too high and you really can't get comfortable with one foot, whether that be just slightly leaning, twisting your body to one side, or you can't hold it on tippy toes with the brake, then maybe you need to go for a bike that's a little bit lower. Obviously there's lots of different variants. Many enduro bikes are very high. I personally wouldn't own one of them for that very reason, because I'd find it irritating to constantly have to be like this. And once you get like that, as you can see here, once the weight goes, it goes. And if you don't catch it, or etc., the bike's then on the floor, you break your mirror, your clutch lever, etc., and nobody wants that. Sport bikes tend to be similar-ish height to this, perhaps slightly taller, but you've got to remember that you're on your clip-ons, and then you're stretching the other bits of your body, which then will stretch alternately your legs, and that's something to think about. I've owned sports bikes and they're brilliant machines, but I wouldn't go back to that again for one of those reasons, because of the seat height and the length of everything. The other thing to consider is if you're taking a pillion, because once you've got a pillion on the back, you're holding more weight, not just your wrists and your arms, but your legs when you're stopping at junctions. But the key thing to remember is, what leg do you want to put down? And do you want to be changing the gear as you stop? Or as I sometimes find that I do, I'll ride up to a junction, I'll be in first gear when I get to the junction, hold the bike on the rear brake, then change the leg over, put the bike into neutral if you're going to be sitting there for a while, then go back to holding it on the brake before riding away. So that's with the standard bike. Obviously you can get lower seats, you can get the foam cut out, narrower seats to the tank make it easier because you're not stretched out like so. That helps. You can get suspensions trimmed, but I'd really leave that to last resort, because you're then changing the geometry of the bike, potentially the handling, and if you want to sell it on, because you'll have to then, which might benefit some people if you sell it on, but other people look and go, well, you've modified it and it's probably worth less. The other things to consider on the bike, as mentioned before with the handlebars, if you've got a sports bike and clip on and you're stretching, we'll think about even the standard bars. If your hands are comfortable and your arms are comfortable and your shoulders are comfortable, your legs and your back's going to be comfortable, and overall it'll be a more pleasurable ride. And that's what we're doing it for. We're doing it to get to A to B safely and enjoyably. So think about that. Same with the mirrors. I've adjusted my mirrors in such a way, or I've put aftermarket mirrors on, so it's just a little bit more comfortable. And as I showed in a previous video, I've changed the brake and clutch lever to the ones that are adjustable. So I was finding, like with my short legs, short fingers, that I just couldn't, as I would like, roll the throttle and the brake, it was just a little bit too far away in its standard form. And again, that all adds up to comfort. So that's it with a bike. And comfortable foot pegs are important as well, because you spend a lot of your time on the foot pegs, and if your feet are slipping, then it's something you're thinking about, and you want to be thinking about the road ahead, not whether your feet are comfortable. And on the subject of comfortable feet, boots. A little bit short, as you can see on my boots. I've got a bit of a heel there. That obviously makes me taller, allows me to get a bit more foot on the ground, and good grip. Because if you have flat-soled shoes or really thinly gripped shoes, your potential of when you put your foot down, your foot will slide, and you don't want to be thinking about that. You want to be confident that when you put your foot down, you're going to grip and you're not going to potentially slide. As I said a moment ago, once it goes, you're in trouble. Especially if you've got a pillion on the back, you're not catching it. Once it's gone, you're on the ground. In terms of the bike, that's and your footwear, that's the important thing. Actually, when talking about the footwear, some companies, I believe Daytona, do ones where they lift the sole inside the boot, so therefore it doesn't appear like you've got a heel, but you are naturally lifted up. They have very good boots. I don't own them, I've had these for 11 years and I will never change from these, and they work for me, but they're certainly worth a look. And that's it for the bike. The next thing to think about is, what do you do when you get up to a junction? When you come up to a junction, what do you need to think about? You need to think about what foot you're going to put down. I've put down my right foot. Whether there's gravel on the junction, because if you put your foot down in gravel, you potentially could slide on the floor. Look around at the traffic, see if there's anything that might change what you're going to do. Obviously, keep an eye on what's going on behind you with your mirrors and your lifesavers. And be ready to go smoothly when you do go, so you don't judder and then all of a sudden have to put your foot down and fall. And other things to look out for, and then ride off smoothly. Hope you've enjoyed what I've told you so far. Hope it's been informative. If so, like and subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it. Got the Instagram channel as well with the same name, the Pint Sized Biker, where I have photos of all sorts of things, whether they be motorcycles, classic cars, dogs, the lot. Ride safely.